as if I'd suggested she cut off her arm. Or we can just order a pizza and watch a movie. I've been in the mood to watch a romantic comedy. Her face instantly relaxed. I chattered away about my day and laughed about Mrs. Jasperson's gossipy interest in our lives as I moved us into the bathroom. I flicked on the fluorescent lights and ran the bathwater. Emily walked in to join me, hanging her head, her arms wrapped tightly around her stomach. I stopped filling the silence and let out a deep sigh. "What'd you do?" I asked. She shrugged and began undressing, her head still hanging low as if she were a puppy who'd been caught peeing on the floor or getting into the garbage. She slid off her pajama pants. Dried blood was smeared all over her legs like crusted trails of rust. There was a lot of it, which meant she'd been cutting herself all day. She undressed slowly, wary of her raw skin. I stared at the jagged edges of her wounds, new and old, as they spliced their way over her pale skin in a tangled web. 3 deep gashes scarred the left side of her stomach. We'd ended up in the emergency room that time. It had taken over 30 staples to stop the bleeding, but they'd done an impressive job with her skin. If you didn't know otherwise, you might think it was an abdominal surgery scar. Her name was crudely etched on her upper right thigh. She'd methodically carved the letters into her skin with a razor on our 14th birthday. When I saw it, I threatened to cut myself too if she didn't stop hurting herself, but it didn't do any good. She kept cutting, and I could never follow through on my thread. I would hold the razor blade to my flesh, but could never slice myself. I didn't have it in me. I didn't say anything about her cutting anymore. There was no need. I understood why she crucified herself. I held her hand as she stepped into the tub and sank into the warm water. I picked up the washcloth and began washing her back. "Tell me about your day," she said as her body relaxed. I filled the bathroom with more stories from my day as I washed her fresh wounds. I told her about the test I'd taken in my introduction to psychology class that morning and how surprised I'd been at how easy it was since the reading material had been so dense and difficult to get through. I sprinkled in stories about the nice weather and how good the breeze felt while I walked to my car, hoping it'd motivate her to start leaving the house again. By the time she was ready to get out of the tub, I'd moved on to my telemarketing stories. "How many times today?" she asked. I smiled. 12. I kept track of how many times I got hung up on every day. We kept a running tally. So far, my record was 32. I couldn't convince her to watch a romantic comedy. She insisted on another episode of Law and Order SVU. I didn't understand her obsession with the darkest and most depraved parts of humanity. I couldn't stand the stories of kids kept in cages or sold into prostitution, but she loved them. If I had my choice, we'd never watch this stuff again. As she cuddled up next to me on our beat-up couch and got ready to solve the latest sex crime with Olivia and the SVU team, I tried to shake the images of her mangled body. It never got easier for me to see the pain she inflicted on herself. "Haven't we already seen this one?" I asked, as a vaguely familiar story about a kidnapped girl found in a trunk unfolded in front of me. "Yes, but only once, and it's one of my favorites." She didn't break her gaze from the TV. I made it to the second commercial break before I couldn't take any more. "I'm going to make dinner." I walked into the kitchen and started rummaging through the refrigerator. I didn't like cooking, but was willing to do it so I didn't have to watch the show. I didn't know what I did wrong when I cooked. I followed the same recipes as Emily, but my dishes never tasted like hers. She was a great cook, and back when she used to leave the house, she'd make exotic meals for us, like chicken makhani or modenese pork chops. She still loved to experiment in the kitchen on her good days, but her options were limited when I did all of the grocery shopping. I settled on pasta, something easy that I couldn't screw up, and hoped by the time we finished eating, I could convince her to watch something happy. I daydreamed about my boyfriend, Thomas, while I waited for the water to boil. He brought me flowers at work again. He loved to give me flowers when it wasn't a special occasion, and never brought roses because he knew I hated them. He'd tucked in another cheesy poem, and I'd teased him about it for the rest of our shift. By the time the water came to a boil, I was smiling and humming to myself. He always had that effect on me. "What are you smiling about?" Emily came up behind me.